Situations of this nature place council in a difficult position, as members are unable to respond accurately to public concerns and may receive negative feedback regarding decisions or actions of which they had no prior knowledge.
I don't report to council when I speak here in New Brunswick, and I don't believe I breached any policy, any bylaw or law by doing the same there.
So it's going to be different and difficult. I think they need to have the province stepping in and doing the training. I think that's imperative that we all get the same training.
Welcome to This Week Uncut, where we take a look at the week's top stories from CHCO-TV and the Courier. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
We begin this week in Eastern Charlotte on a code of conduct complaint for Mayor John Craig.
Yes, this is the first instance of a code of conduct review happening in front of the public.
That's right. So you would have heard us on this show talk about the advisory from the Local Governance Commission. This was the first instance in 2 years that Eastern Charlotte has dealt with a code of conduct complaint in open session. Mm-hmm. But I would assume, and traditionally we would assume, that those were always held in closed session. And so we sort of got some insight into the process, how it works, but we also got to see sort of the complicated bits of that process, the making of accusations, the responding to accusations, and then the debate afterwards.
Mm-hmm. In this case, the accusations came from a Councillor Lisa McKay. So it was interesting to see, like you said, how that process works. The mayor was still in the room when the letter was read aloud by Councillor McKay herself. And then the mayor had time to respond before he left the room for council to debate. So I was doing camera work the night of, so it was definitely one of the more intense meetings I've been at in a while. When you live and work in small communities, you know people quite well, regardless. So it was definitely a tense situation. You could tell there was a lot of weight of considerations around the table.
Yeah, so Councillor McKay filed this complaint to the deputy mayor, which is the standard process when a complaint is made against the mayor by another councillor. And the complaint alleged that Mayor Craig signed a letter in support of JDI, who was lobbying the government to log 32,000 hectares of land in exchange for providing conservation land in those communities. Now, that letter eventually made its way to CBC's Silas Brown. They published a story. The Department of Natural Resources said, yes, we are considering all options. And then there was sort of a turnaround of fates, and they said, no, we're not doing that. But that was the first thing. She said that letter hadn't been brought to council for consideration. He signed the letter without their approval, without going through the processes. The other issue was comments that were made at the February 10th Committee of the Whole meeting. There appeared to allegedly there was an argument. I mean, these meetings are not filmed, they're not recorded. Public are present, mm-hmm. And it is open to the public, but they are not done in the same way as the regular council meetings. And so there was a bit of a back and forth, is my understanding, and the mayor made some comments that she believed were not becoming of the conduct of a councillor, or a mayor in this case. And the third part of the complaint was a trip that Mayor Craig made to Ottawa, or went to Ottawa, lobbying members of Parliament about an issue in British Columbia, which is the formal ban of open pen net salmon fishing by June of 2029. And so he was invited by the city of Campbell River to come. They paid for his flight, they paid for his hotel, to do some of that lobbying work because of Eastern Charlotte's connection to the aquaculture industry. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to say, even at the top of the show, Mayor Craig will touch on this later when we play his remarks, but he did take care of the other financial costs of that trip himself as well. But I don't think the council was necessarily aware of all the details of the trip, hence the complaint.
Sure, and I just want to be clear. Mayor Craig filed a financial report to the Chief Administrative Officer, Jason Godet, And I think it probably would have been as simple as going to Jason and asking him for that financial report. Mayor Craig did later clarify that any additional expenses, his food, was paid for at his own expense. So the taxpayers of Eastern Charlotte were not involved in that trip. However, the council's argument is that he should not have gone on that trip representing Eastern Charlotte without their approval. His argument, which you'll hear from him in a little bit, was, listen, I go and speak all the time in New Brunswick. I don't come back to you and ask for permission. He's the spokesperson for the town of Eastern Charlotte. When we make media requests to him, when other organizations make media requests to Eastern Charlotte, they are given John Craig. He is the spokesperson. And so he is allowed to speak on any issue related to Eastern Charlotte. And so it certainly was a bit of a difficult thing, because essentially we were watching the court of public opinion. We were watching this process play out in real time. It was a first for me. I've never dealt with this in my career. Code of conduct has always been handled behind closed doors, and then they come out at the end and they vote on a decision. So certainly it was difficult to watch, but there were intricacies in there that we sort of got an insight into that we didn't have before.
And I will say, as difficult, uncomfortable, whatever adjectives we want to use to describe the experience of being a part of it, of having the public open to this, and then also, the mayor could watch it after. Just because you're not in the room during doesn't mean you won't see the debate after the fact. But I think what's I found interesting about it too, though, is that it doesn't leave anything for interpretation after the fact. So in a lot of ways, I left with a very clear takeaway of what I thought of the situation. And I was also able to talk to people to get their takeaway too. So I feel like it was transparent, though uncomfortable at times. It made it, I didn't have to wait afterwards to try to piece together what happened, interpret it myself. I'm able to walk away with a fully transparent understanding of what accusation was made, how he defended himself, and then watch the judgment play out.
Councillor Lisa McKay read her letter out loud at council. Take a listen.
Dear Deputy Mayor Hatt, I am writing you in my capacity as Councillor at Large for the Municipality of Eastern Charlotte to formally express concerns regarding recent actions taken by Mayor John Craig that raise questions about governance procedures, transparency, and adherence to the Local Governance Act. It was recently brought to Council's attention that a document was signed by the Mayor without prior knowledge, discussion, or approval of Council. As you are aware, matters of this nature fall within Council's collective authority, and decisions with the municipal implications are expected to be reviewed and approved through the appropriate Council process. Council became aware of this matter only after it was reported publicly through a CBC News article. Situations of this nature place Council in a difficult position, as members are unable to respond accurately to public concerns and may receive negative feedback regarding decisions or actions of which they had no prior knowledge. This not only undermines established government's protocols, but also affects public confidence and creates the appearance of a lack of transparency within the municipality. While the mayor subsequently acknowledged the matter to council, the situation reflects a broader concern regarding decision-making occurring outside of council's oversight. This issue is particularly concerning considering previous instances where council have been informed after actions have already been taken. Further, during a council meeting held on February 10th, 2026, when I raised this matter in my role as an elected representative seeking clarity and accountability, the mayor responded in a manner that I believe was inappropriate for public forum and inconsistent with the respectful and professional conduct expected within council. To make statements to a councillor that they are holier than thou and that I'm not perfect like you shows disrespect to any council member. Maintaining a respectful working environment is essential to effective governance and to setting a positive example for our community. In addition, I am requesting that a formal review be conducted regarding the mayor's attendance at the International Conference on Aquaculture, Fisheries, and Marine Biology held in Ottawa, November 25th, 2025. As this travel occurred on behalf of the municipality without prior council knowledge or approval, I respectfully request that council be provided with a full accounting of the purpose, authorization, and associated expenses to ensure transparency and compliance with municipal policies. The intent of this letter is not personal, but rather to uphold the standards of accountability, transparency, and collective decision-making required under the Local Governance Act and expected by the residents of Eastern Charlotte. I respectfully request that this letter be placed on the agenda for the council meeting so that council may review these concerns, clarify expectations regarding governance, procedures, and to ensure the appropriate safeguards are in place moving forward. Thank you for your attention to this matter and for your commitment to responsible and transparent municipal governance. Sincerely, Lisa McKay, Councillor at Large.
That was Councillor Lisa McKay reading her complaint letter to council at the February meeting of Eastern Charlotte.
So she was very clear in what she felt and thought about the mayor's conduct. I want to point something out, because when we first heard about the advisory to councils on code of conduct, we sort of looked into what was happening. And St. Andrew's response included something that I thought was very interesting, because they want the government, the Department of Local Government, to provide them with a formalized sort of across-the-board process for code of conduct by law, which I think is actually a very reasonable request. But they also mention that there are provinces who have made meaningful changes to code of conduct by law, including Nova Scotia, who has implemented rules that state that a councillor cannot file a complaint against another councillor or on behalf of someone else in the community. So it's sort of, there's different interpretations and there's different rules. In Alberta, there's no code of conduct. So you can't file a complaint against a councillor because there is no code of conduct. So what we're seeing there is one councillor leveling accusations against a mayor, and we don't have to sort of guess about why that would be difficult, given, you know, the proximity of each other. They work together as members of council, but it's also a very small community. But as you said, it leaves no doubt about what the accusations are. And then we heard from Mayor John Craig on his response to Councillor McKay's accusations.
The trip to Ottawa in November, this was a trip that was paid for by the City of Campbell River, BC, and myself. The Campbell River, BC paid for the flight out, the hotels, and I paid for everything else on my own. There was nothing that the Eastern Charlotte paid for. Luckily, across, if anybody knows Ottawa, there's quite a few Tim Hortons in Ottawa. So luckily, I just went across the street, and that's where I had most of my meals. A full financial disclosure was already filed with the CEO on return. He has that in his office. It was not a pleasure trip, as some of you, anybody knows that I don't like flying. It was 3 days of work of lobbying MPs, along with Mayor Kermit Dahl with the City of Campbell River. As some of you may know or may not know, with the Trudeau government, they have plans on banning open net pens in British Columbia by June 30th, 2029. It was important that the MPs in Ottawa heard what effects this will have on local economies. I went because I want to ensure that the government doesn't do that on the East Coast. I was asked by City of Campbell River to go along because the City of Campbell River are going through a lot of stress at this point. It was them that approached me. They wanted a mayor from their coast and a mayor from the East Coast. I went there to make sure that, as I said, that the government doesn't do that on the East Coast. A mayor from East Coast describing A mayor from each coast describing the importance of the aquaculture industry is to our communities. He spoke first to the MPs, describing how the First Nations were doing well right now. The suicide rate in his area for the First Nations have gone down to almost zero because of the aquaculture industry. They're all working out there. They're afraid that things will go back to the way they were if the government, the federal government, doesn't change the way that what they plan on doing with these licenses. So I spoke on, when I was in Ottawa, on our area doing very well because of the aquaculture industry. The schools are doing well. Businesses are trying to expand. Churches, specifically the Catholic Church here, has done very, very well because of the aquaculture industry and the increase in tax dollars for our area. And the biggest thing that I spoke on was, and this is I think a lot of you should realize this, the young people in Eastern Charlotte get to stay home. They don't have to go out west to work because of the aquaculture industry. So we spoke, the mayor, Dahl, and myself, we spoke to as many MPs for a full day, actually almost 2 days. I left on Sunday. I drove to Fredericton. I had my daughter take me to the airport with my vehicle to save money, to save gas. Nothing went through Eastern Charlotte. I'm just trying to do this chronologically, make sure I do it right. I flew out to Ottawa, that was paid for by the Campbell River. I paid for my taxi from the airport to downtown Ottawa. Had my own meals at the Tim Hortons across the street from the hotel. It was important for me to go. This type of trip is what I do all the time here in Eastern Charlotte. I promote and I support local industry. The only difference is Mayor Dahl and I went to them in Ottawa. Instead of doing it here in this area, which I do all the time, I speak all the time in this area on local industry and businesses. That is what a mayor is supposed to do. If you want a mayor, that's what a mayor's got to do. He's got to stand up for local industry, for jobs and everything else. I did this on my own for 4 or 5 days because I was asked to go. I felt it was the right thing to do. It didn't cost any taxpayers money. It cost me money and the city of Campbell River. I don't report to council when I speak here in New Brunswick, and I don't believe I breached any policy, any bylaw or law by doing the same there. It's the same thing. I just did it out there, the same thing I do here, and I speak all the time, and you guys never get a report of where I am and what I'm doing. I spoke in December in St. Andrews on the importance of the aquaculture industry in a room of more than, I believe 300 people. With the Premier was there, the MPs are there, MLAs were in attendance. I didn't report to council. I do this all the time. When I go places, a lot of times they ask me to speak. And what I speak about is what we need in our area, what we have to keep. We have to keep people working. And I will do that all the time as mayor. Jobs are important. I don't report to council on that. I never have. I don't think many mayors do. Same thing I did out in Ottawa. I did the same thing. I went out there. There is no policy. There is no bylaw. There's no law saying that I had to tell you where I was going. I did that on my own. Basically, it was my own time, and I went out there. If anything, you should be thanking me for the people of Eastern Charlotte should be thanking me for standing up for jobs in this area. There's many, many more things that I go and I speak to, and I'm not going to list them all here tonight because I don't know because of time. But a mayor is supposed to stand up and support local industry and jobs. If you want a weak mayor and just let jobs disappear, then you have the wrong mayor. I'm asking council tonight not to dismiss these allegations, but rather send them to our legal to tell you what policy, bylaw, or law that was violated. You need to know that, and I need to know that. The second item, signing a letter of support for local industry that employs up to 500 full-time workers directly or indirectly in Eastern Charlotte without council knowing. Letters of support are very common by the mayor's office. And when this came across my desk from a local industry, I quickly signed it in my enthusiasm for protecting and supporting local jobs. At the time, I saw many mayors had supported the industry as well, including Fundy Shores right next to us. This industry is a great partner, allowing us to develop properties such as the Riverside Park, Eagle's Nest, Canal Beach. The same industry also installed a new clock at the arena at no charge. I firmly believe a mayor, as community leader, should always be defending local industry, local jobs, and all its citizens, and not be scared to step forward at every opportunity. I have done that, and I will continue to do that. Eastern Charlotte's jobs, New Brunswick's jobs, Canadian jobs are since last year being threatened by neighbors to the south. Every job, directly or indirectly, are in danger of being stripped from our country since higher tariffs were imposed. We, and I say we, meaning Eastern Charlotte, have industries such as the softwood lumber, such as aquaculture, such as lobster, as your deputy mayor would know, and herring, that need our help as elected officials. By saying all this and putting all that aside, the issue at hand is this. Council, I fully apologize to all of you for not informing you ahead of time on this matter. In hindsight, I probably should have brought this to you. Did I make a mistake? Yes, I am human. And I will remind everybody that the proposal that the industry put forward, that the province turned down the industry's proposal. Again, Council, I'm not asking you to dismiss these allegations tonight, but rather get a legal opinion. That is one of your top options to be able to do. So I and both, all of you know what policy or law that was broken. I need to know that, and you need to know that. The last item on here was the holier than thou comment. Yes, I probably should have never said that. I was attacked in a public meeting and was twice asked to resign, and I lost my composure, and I apologize. But nobody at that table or this table here tonight has the right to demand anybody's resignation, for we all of us are duly elected officials. Nobody has that right to even ask for it. I want to remind Council that at least 4 to 5 members of this Council previously had code of conduct allegations against them, and not one was asked by me or anybody else to resign. Nobody was. You know the reason why? It's because you're not allowed to ask for anybody to resign, and I wouldn't allow it. I would never allow it, and it never happened to 4 or 5 of you as well. Saying all that tonight, I will continue to be your leader and stand up for jobs in the area. That's the reason why I do what I do, and I won't back down from it.
That was Eastern Charlotte Mayor John Craig responding to allegations made by Councillor Lisa McKay on a code of conduct complaint.
I think everyone now at home, had they missed the meeting in full, now understand what we mean when we say that it was definitely a tense meeting, definitely a lot of emotions at the table as well.
Yes, but this is the democratic process to some degree. I do think that it is challenging, I think, you know, when it comes to complaints that are frivolous or have no merit or have no standing or who have come from someone outside of the municipality or not related or connected to the council in any way, or the municipality for that matter. I do want to point out that John apologized twice in his remarks. He apologized for the comments that he made at that February 10th Committee of the Whole meeting, you know, the holier than thou comment, and I'm not as perfect as you. He said this was a reaction, a very visceral reaction to being asked to resign twice at that meeting. He said, I was attacked in a public meeting and I lost my composure. And then he also apologized for not bringing the letter forward initially. And in hindsight, he said, I probably should have brought it forward. So that's where he sort of sits, right? And now they've sent it, along at Mayor Craig's wishes to legal counsel. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to take a look at the debate from councillors on the Code of Conduct complaint against Mayor John Craig.
In regards to the Irving situation, I mean, maybe some of us on council were for it, maybe some of us on council were against it, but he took that away from us by not allowing us to have even an opinion.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon. So in Mayor Craig's explanation, which you heard just before the break, he talks a lot about industry. We're talking about a letter by JDI, who has operations in Lake Utopia and employs a significant amount of people in Lake Utopia and Eastern Charlotte. And he's talking about Cook Aquaculture and Connors Brothers, both industry giants when it comes to aquaculture. Cook Aquaculture is an international seafood company. They are, on the top of the list for the whole government when it comes to dealing with trade tariffs. And so his rationale behind what he was doing in British Columbia is not only just to protect the aquaculture industry locally, but to protect it in the sense that they want to protect the economy. They want to protect local jobs. He said the biggest thing that he spoke on was, allowing youth to stay in Eastern Charlotte because they don't have to go out west and work, because they have the aquaculture industry here. And the same of, JDI, who also employs many people in Eastern Charlotte. And I think, he said to me in a statement, he said, I will not be a weak leader and I will not be a weak mayor. He also said that the timing of this is probably not a coincidence. He said, I think the people of Eastern Charlotte know what this is truly about in the coming months ahead of an election.
We've got municipal elections coming up in May, and next meeting is March. So the campaign season is about to get underway. And in some cases, we've seen it already start. Here in St. Andrews, we have people declaring their candidacy for mayor. A couple people already in St. Stephen. So we know that season is underway. So that was something he said to you for the Courier.
Yeah, but what we don't know is what their actual motivation was, other than what was said at the meeting. But we're sort of left waiting for a response. Take a listen to the debate among councillors on the Code of Conduct complaint against Mayor John Craig.
Under Section 4 of the municipal bylaws, or the Code of Conduct bylaws, it says complaints. Any person in good faith may report a perceived wrongdoing or make a complaint alleging a breach of code of conduct by the councillor. That is where we're at. The report or complaint shall be filed in writing, outlining the nature of the specifics, which Councillor McKay just read to us. Depending on the nature of the complaint, this is where it gets back to us. Council may dismiss the report or complaint as invalid, request legal opinion regarding the report or complaint, request the legal counsel investigate the complainant and report to council through the mayor, or in the case of a perceived wrongdoing by the mayor, through the deputy mayor. And if the complaint is termed to be valid by the majority of council or through independent legal advice, council may impose sanctions defining the specific actions to be taken by a motion. So, a letter of reprimand. Number 2 is requesting a letter of apology. Number 3 is requesting to attend training. Number 4, suspension or removal of the mayor or deputy mayor as official spokesperson for council. Number 5, suspension or removal from some or all council committees and bodies which council has the right to appoint members. Number 6, restricting the privileges of attending conferences and workshops at Eastern Charlotte's expense. And number 7, reduction or suspension of remuneration as council may deem appropriate. So there's 2 parts to this. We've got to decide if it's valid to act on, and then, according to which way we go on that, what our actions may be. Okay. Am I missing anything, Jason?
Mr. Chair, may I have clarification on something, please? So it says that there are There are essentially three options. Depending on the nature of the complaint, there are three options that we can consider. When we consider sanctions, that's not until there's really recourse from, if council was hypothetically was to go through legal counsel to investigate this matter, this is part two. That's like a part two thing. Like what is the course of action on this?
Just for clarification, council can deem that it is valid and move towards sanctions if it wishes. The bylaw, the way it's written, is that would, in order of a step, it would be like you said, a step two. But council can say, we're going to move forward. This is valid. We're not going to dismiss. We're not going to send this to legal. If it moves to valid, then it can do that as well.
Yeah. And then from that course, once we move this if we hypothetically was to move this to legal counsel, and they communicated their findings to the deputy mayor, who then communicated to us, then council would then decide what the sanctions are? That's the course? Okay.
Correct, yeah. It would then move to old business and then be brought back out upon usually a report from our legal counsel.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess the next step is, what's your wish? Do we need a motion on what we want? Councillor McKay?
It would be if I could make a motion, is
Yep.
that what I'm doing right now?
Yep.
Okay, so I move that council request that legal counsel investigate the complaint and report to council through the deputy mayor.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder? Any questions? Councillor David?
And for CAO, maybe you might not be able to answer this, but just in regards to some of this, for a mayor attending a conference, past practice, what has it been in?
We haven't really had much for past practices. If it's something that is expensed, then certainly that's outlined in expenses and monthly expenses. But we have had councillors or council members or mayors that have attended Fredericton Convention, for example, and that's just part of our regular expense. There's no pre-approval to anything like that. So, but yes, as the mayor did mention, he did file with, in regards to his trip, he did file with myself, just a review of what he did, who paid for it, and there was no expenses to council.
So my question would be, so in regards to the two complaints, our mayor was representing council. Was he not representing council at this conference in Ottawa? He was representing us?
Yeah, he'd be using his title as mayor
Right.
of Eastern Charlotte.
So as representing council, and the same with signing the letter for Irving, without us having any kind of input on it, that takes away our role as council to have any kind of input on maybe something we would like for him to say in regards to the Irving situation. I mean, maybe some of us on council were for it, maybe some of us on council were against it, but he took that away from us by not allowing us to have even an opinion. So it's the same with the thing in Ottawa. We had no idea that he was going. Yes, he did it on his own dime, which I think is great. However, speaking for council, and yes, I know he speaks out publicly in lots of things, but when he is actually going, speaking for council, I think council should have some sort of input, because therefore he's acting on his own. A man speaking on his own brings his own honor, but a man going and speaking for the people that he represents speaks for the honor of those people. So that is where my complaint comes from.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Is there any other questions, I guess, at this point?
I just have one other
Councillor.
comment. The mayor actually is the official spokesperson for the municipality, and he can speak, and the mayor is right in saying that he can speak on any issue. Regarding the issue of signing the letter and us not knowing about it, I do have a little issue with that because it wasn't brought before council. and I think it should have been.
Under Code of Conduct, Section 3A2, it says, conduct council business in an open and transparent manner that promotes public confidence and trust, recognizing that an individual councillor cannot exercise individual authority over Eastern Charlotte. So that's kind of backing up Lisa's claim, I guess, is what on page 2 of 7. That's the motion that's on the floor, so I guess if there's no more questions, we'll go to the vote.
Actually, I want to explain why I'm going to be supporting the motion. Mayor Craig has over 30 years of experience in municipal politics, and no, I'm not a lawyer, but I think I can read, and I believe that the mayor did break, one of the most basic rules in the Local Governance Act, and the mayor went rogue and made a decision without council knowing, and Councillor McKay had listed some examples, and this does go against the Local Governance Act. In the Local Governance Act, it's cited in section 48.2, the mayor of the local government is subject to the direction and control of council and shall abide by the decisions of council. In this case, council was not aware of these decisions. Us, like the public did, we found out about the existence of a letter through a CBC article, and that's not acceptable. And so I want to reiterate that this was not a rookie mistake. This was willful negligence, okay? And the other part of your complaint, Councillor McKay, you had mentioned about a trip to Ottawa. This was another example in which the mayor had failed to communicate about this trip and failed to seek council's direction regarding that trip. At the time, we were working on a budget. We also had a regular council meeting scheduled. It is totally within council's right. If council wished that, our mayor, the chair of our meetings stays and chairs our meetings, these are pressing matters to deal with, we had full authority to do that, but we were denied that opportunity to make that decision. And I want to also reiterate, this is a council that supports local businesses, supports local economies, supports the agriculture industry. They are the backbone of our local economy. But this is not what it's about. It's not about support. The question is not whether you support this industry or that industry. The question is good governance and procedure. And in this case, in my opinion, procedure was not followed.
That was council deciding how to move forward with a code of conduct complaint against Mayor John Craig at the February Eastern Charlotte Council meeting.
So people are probably going to be wondering what the next steps are after this vote. So the complaint will go to a lawyer to be reviewed. That lawyer is someone that works with the municipality. They have a little legal fund. And so that will get reviewed, and then there will be probably some recommendations that come back to council. Now, in speaking about Section 68.1, there are specific reasons, I believe about 10 of them, under which council may enter into a closed session. So an important distinction in legislation is shall is you have to, you have no choice. May implies you have a little bit of a choice. So it is plausible they could come into an open session and discuss that recommendation. But any decision or vote, any discussion about the decision on how to move forward after the recommendation and the vote have to be done in open session.
And I wonder to what degree, like we said earlier, the timing, given that it's already late February, we have elections coming in May. Is this something that looks like it will be done before people go to the polls?
Well, I guess that all depends on whether or not Mayor Craig reoffers as mayor of Eastern Charlotte and whether he's around that table. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to discuss the province's decision not to move forward with mandatory training after the May municipal elections.
You get different people, you get different interpretations, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to be all on the same focus and ideas.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.
So the province has decided not to move forward with the mandatory part of mandatory training.
Yeah.
So this story originally came to my attention through the very talented and municipally interested CBC reporter Sam Farley, who filed a right to information request on mandatory training. The background on this is the Local Governance Commission brought out its first annual report. The chair, Giselle Gauguin, said mandatory training has been identified as something that should be happening at the municipal level. And then she identified a few things: code of conduct, conflict of interest, right to information, protection of privacy act. Some of the things that we know have been identified as issues within municipalities that we know is happening. 2 municipalities in New Brunswick have lost quorum, and so they're now under the supervision of the department. 2 of them are under the supervision because of internal turmoil, sort of infighting between councillors. So the hint of dysfunction is there, and I think that the Commission's intention was to have a process by which councillors, mayors, staff could be educated within 6 months of those May elections.
To give an example, we watched portions of the Eastern Charlotte February council meeting over the first half of this show. But in Councillor McKay's final comments, she said she wanted to apologize to the voters, to the residents of Eastern Charlotte, because at one point in the last few years, there was a code of conduct complaint against her as well, and that was taken care of privately. So this was a part of the reason for this mandatory training, right? All of these rules and bylaws and things that were misinterpreted.
Yeah, I mean, they were being misinterpreted by everyone, as far as I can understand. The mayors and councillors and chief administrative officers that I've spoken with have all said they thought that it was fine and that they sort of were doing it the right way, but turns out that they weren't, and many of them have now taken steps to rectify their code of conduct bylaws. But again, I told you in the first segment of the show that St. Andrews has asked the Department of Local Government for a standard formalized process by which everyone can operate, which would make a lot of sense, because what we're going to end up sort of seeing, and we'll talk about this in terms of training as well, is a patchwork of how councils are deciding to operate with code of conduct and conflict of interest. And then, hypothetically, we could end up right back in the same situation where councils are not doing it the right way, and they're going to get reprimanded again, or they're going to get, sort of in the same situation they were to begin with.
Here is Acting Mayor of St. Andrews, Kate Akagi, discussing mandatory training for councils.
When I first started, which was a long time ago, about 16 years ago, I didn't have a clue about, politics and whatnot, and was asked to run by a friend, so did. And for me, the training was great. We went to Fredericton. We spent the 2 days there learning all about how municipalities worked and how the operation. And I think that, for me, was very influential because I taught politics, municipal things, but when you're thrown in it, you don't know all the protocols. And I think it's imperative that they train new people that are trying to do this job as to what they have to do. And if they don't have an idea of what they have to do, it doesn't go very well. Councils won't gel together. There could be a lot of people with their personalities that don't get along. I mean, I found that the training taught us how to approach municipal things, understand them, do things the way municipalities do, what we were responsible for, what we were not responsible for. That was good. Now they're not going to train them. Who's going to train them? Is it going to be the municipality that left? No, because our councillors are going to be gone. They'll be in the area, but I don't think they want to come in and do training. The Regional Service Commission, they're trying, but again, you need to have the right people to train, so you've got to find those. So it's going to be different and difficult, I think they need to have the province stepping in and doing the training. I think that's imperative, that we all get the same training. That's the other thing, is that when you have these trainings all over the place, you get different people, you get different interpretations. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to be all in the same focus and ideas.
St. Andrews asked for a standardized process for code of conduct bylaws. Other municipalities are also facing issues, with their scope of how they handle homelessness, for example. The municipal plan is another great example. Do you think ELG is listening to municipalities, given that what they did in 2023 is sort of bearing fruit for councils now, and they're not really giving you the support in response to that?
With the turnover of the new government, I know they have to get in and they have to figure things out, but I think some of their people were there from before, so they should know what has been going on. And they should be able to answer the questions that the people, the municipalities, the constituents are all asking, because we're all asking the same questions. We need help. We need, from the head down, direction on what we should do, and we're not getting that total assistance from the head down. We are getting bits and pieces on what we're supposed to do, and that can be all up to interpretation, right? So I feel there has to be more government-led or provincially led standards for us to follow that is for all of the municipalities, not just one, but for all of them in the province of New Brunswick, so that we can flow together and make our province as unique and wonderful as it is.
That was Acting Mayor of St. Andrews, Kate Ackergy, discussing mandatory training for councils.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to take a look at what the team is doing next week.
Welcome back to This Week Uncut. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
We're looking ahead at what's happening at CHCO in the Courier next week. What do you have on your plate?
Well, I would like to take a break, but the news never sleeps. So we're going to be, I have been slowly picking away at a Right to Information and Protection of Privacy Act request on the St. Andrews Wharf. We will be going to a meeting on Wednesday, February 25th at 5 o'clock at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Council Chambers downstairs for the structural report done by Fundy Engineering on the wharf. So this is something that I know a lot of people have been waiting for. This is the start of the next chapter of how they decide to move forward with a wharf. And we don't know if it's going to be this council that ultimately makes the decision or the council that's elected in May, but this is the next step into understanding what the condition of the wharf is physically.
Okay, well, since seems to happen a lot, the council meetings fall on the same night these days. So if you will be in St. Andrews for the wharf discussion, I will be in St. Stephen for the regular council meeting for February. But on top of that, very excited because we're about to kick off election coverage. I know we talked about that a lot already on this show, so I'm setting up a time, hopefully for next week, to sit down with Chief Electoral Officer Kim Poffenroth in Fredericton. Maybe we'll go up together. We've got some work we could do up in Fredericton.
I
some
would
time
love.
in the legislature too. So yeah, maybe we'll make a Fredericton day out of it. But I'm trying to set up some times. But really, what we want to do is kick off on this show too, which is really exciting, our election coverage by giving you, I know mandatory training, like we said, might not be on the table for those elected, but we are going to do our own 101, everything you need to know, whether you're a voter or whether you are also running too. So it should be fun.
All of the things are coming together. Once we have those details finalized, you will know those details.
It'll be exciting.
Thanks for watching This Week Uncut. We'll see you next week. I'm Nathalie Sturgeon.
And I'm Vicki Hogarth.